I don't think I've ever told this story, but my friend was videotaping, and I started talking to him about her. And then I was done. And I was literally done. Then I talked for about 10, 15 minutes, so I don't know where that
Kevin
footage is.
Costner entered a people on the movie set observed his composure. Voice, powerful presence, and understated charm. He became one of the biggest stars in Hollywood. However, behind the celebrity, the accolades, and the large homes, he was concealing a deep heartache at 68 years old and recently divorced at last. Kevin is expressing what he stated has stunned and surprised fans. Hollywood figures he's referring to he never stopped loving the same woman. Most people didn't think so, and this is more than just a romantic tale. It's a tale of regretful timing and potential who she was, and why she has been. Kevin is speaking now. Please remain with us because his admission will make you unable to speak. Kevin Costner's ascent to prominence began with the very Kevin Costner's life began as distinct from the film industry. And he wasn't born into wealth or fame. He was born in Hollywood on January 18, 1955 in California's Linwood. He was William, the youngest of three boys. His father Costner was an actress, and his mother Sharon raised the children at home. Despite their lack of possessions, they had love. Kevin's family moved frequently when he was a child. Didn't spend too much time in one spot. He resided in tiny communities such as Compton, and it wasn't simple for Ventura. He wasn't the biggest or the fastest, either an athlete or a student, yet he had something silent inside of him, like to write and reflect alone. He occasionally composed poems, simply dreamed, and those peaceful dreams that they were just starting to stick with us. Because what happened next would be unexpected. You visited California, Kevin Costner. Fullerton State University, and studying business was a wise decision. Although he knew it wasn't the one his heart desired. He wasn't particularly fond of numbers. Wanted to share stories that he kept to himself. Saying it out, but he wanted to pretend that desired to experience something genuine. To demonstrate to visitors something real after he took a brief flight while in college that transformed his life. And seated beside him was Kevin told a man who worked in film. He wanted to pretend that the man provided him basic guidance that he ought to into performing. But there was an obstacle in that Kevin didn't have any money or fame. Pals, he worked without assistance. Driving a lot of jobs on fishing boats, vehicles, providing tours at film studios, and he attended acting courses that evening. Wasn't well known or even close at times. He played little roles that didn't work out. People didn't recognize him on the screen. Name? He hasn't stopped anything. Kept him moving. And then a tiny role in the film The Big Chill. Kevin played the visage of a deceased friend. Didn't appear in the finished version. However, the director had a positive experience. He called Kevin after remembering him. Kevin returned seeking something greater in 1985. Had a genuine chance. The film was Silverado portrayed a ferocious cowboy with such fire and charm that everybody saw he was entertaining to see, which is when Hollywood began to glance in his direction. But it didn't conclude there. In 1987, with a film called The Following the release of Untouchables, Kevin played Elliot Ness, a man of integrity and strength, who battled crime and acted alongside large celebrities such as Robert and Sean Connery. Although Kevin had a lot of his calmness made him popular. Bull Durham then entered the scene, steady and real. Field of Dreams in 1989 and 1988 were well known, but they also revealed Kevin's true identity. In the field of he portrayed a man who heard a voice in his dreams. If you construct it in his cornfield, he will, although it seemed bizarre, It was packed with "I hope everyone enjoyed what they saw." Truthful in him, something powerful and kind, and his greatest danger arrived in 1990. Kevin didn't just act as he danced with the wolves. He directed too many people in it. Claimed that because it was lengthy, it would fail. It was about Native Americans being told in silence, with consideration and deference, but Kevin thought he put everything he had into it. The film was a great hit, winning 7 the Academy Awards Best Director and Best Image that Kevin had created. He was now one of the most well-known figures in Hollywood, but more significant than the honors was the feeling behind everything Kevin had done. He had put his faith in the gentle voice. He was more than simply a movie star on the inside. Remained the same small-town lad, the story-loving boy, the youngster who dreamed while sitting by the sea, and that the boy had reached the end, but when it was different when it came to his romantic life. The entire narrative about Kevin Costner, the man behind the mythology, as we previously stated, Kevin Costner had played a variety of roles, including a cowboy and a bodyguard to a fan of baseball. For Kevin Costner has played for almost 40 years. The type of rugged guy that people admire, quietly heroic and noble. But that's the rendition of the true narrative that we see in movies is more intricate, since behind the recognition behind the stoic roles, and the man with the golden statue spent decades of attempting to understand love loss, and the meaning of truly being present for someone and realizing the tale we must revisit. Not too from Hollywood to a university campus, and everything began in California. With Cindy Silva, a girl. So watch the video through to the end to obtain the main idea of how it all began in 1975. Costner wasn't yet well known. He was a young man with a lot of money. Cindy was brilliant, caring, and had a crush on Dream. And lovely, the type of woman who created Kevin wants to improve his love life. Cindy, to the extent that he once claimed she was all he desired in a woman, and he was ecstatic when she made the decision to go out. In 1978, they were wedded to him. Wasn't simple as Kevin Costner pursued Cindy, tried to preserve her acting jobs. Floating, she had faith in him despite for years, Hollywood didn't. It was merely the world against the two of them, and then everyone began to take notice. Featuring songs like Bull and The Untouchables, one hit after another at Durham, Field of Dreams, another Kevin Costner entered the home. Name and temptation accompanied that notoriety. The demands of celebrity didn't simply go away. It put his marriage rumors to the test. Disseminated to every location where the man who before embraced Cindy, and now discovered himself becoming disengaged. Thus in 1994, following their marriage lasted 16 years, and had 3 children. Concluded, Cindy's settlement was $80 million, but when examining it was more difficult to quantify the emotional cost. Costner subsequently acknowledged that his belief was rattled. He wasn't merely discussing, he was speaking of his own marriage. Had created this perception of Americans. Hero, then observed his private life disintegrate behind the scenes with his children. Joe and Annie Lily were apprehended. In his opinion, that was a huge defeat. Following Kevin Costner and his initial Cindy Silva's wife went through a divorce. Began to fall apart for him, but he wasn't simply devastated that he'd lost his job. Was having difficulties, and his private life was everywhere. Around the middle of the 1990s, Kevin had a few relationships, however none of the interactions persisted. It seemed as though he refused to let his heart open once more. Following his ordeal with Cindy, Bridget Rooney then arrived. Although the romance didn't continue long, it led to the 1996 birth of his son Liam. You might be considering having a second child. Could aid Kevin in settling down, but at Kevin, didn't those close to him say Costner didn't seem to know who he was. He portrayed powerful romantic heroes on screen. However, off-screen, he was a man attempting to sort himself out. Even his co-worker at one point, Ben Affleck, claimed that he and Matt Damon weren't certain that Kevin had a work memory. On Field of Dreams with them, a tiny statement, but one that subtly elevated worry, and then suddenly there a world-renowned person is Ella McPherson, supermodel, with whom they began dating in 1996. And it happened quickly. In just a few months, they were cohabitating, and Kevin even claimed that she was equally lovely, intelligent, and compassionate. However, it ended at the conclusion of the year. His acquaintances remarked that he never ceased to consider Cindy despite the fact that their marriage didn't work out, and he still missed their straightforward, sincere affection. When the residential were both young and having difficulties together, couldn't seem to regain that emotion. Nevertheless, his films weren't Waterworld's success was a complete failure. Postman performed much worse than Kevin Costner. The former Hollywood tycoon was now falling and lacking a stable home life to rely on it to demonstrate both his world, and both the personal and professional spheres were declining. Separated, but then an unexpected development. Kevin and Christine met in 1998. She worked as a model, and a 20-year-old handbag designer who him, and it felt different this time. Kevin appeared content once more, as if he saw the prospect of a future with someone. Still, they dated for 4 years, but things weren't great. Years, but they split up in 2002. Why? They were married at Kevin's big wedding in 2004. In Aspen, Colorado, they had a ranch with 3 Caden Hayes and Grace together with their kids. It appeared to be Kevin, for almost 20 years, had at last discovered serenity, which he frequently commended in interviews. Christine refers to her as his genuine companion, but despite all of that affection there was still tension at home. Kevin's the acting career had returned with he and Yellowstone were occupied with Horizon, his ideal film concept. Abruptly, he was being drawn in 2 different directions. Work and family are having the same issue that caused his first marriage to dissolve was beginning to appear once more due to Kevin's prosperity, and love were always linked. When one began to disintegrate in May, the other often followed. Fans of 2023 were surprised to learn that after 18 years of Christine Baumgartner's marriage filed for Kevin Costner's divorce. Divorce swiftly turned messy, and extremely, they quarreled in public over homes, money, and it was all about who would look after the children. Over the news, and a lot of people were surprised to view one of the most exclusive shows in Hollywood. Couples experience a very unpleasant event. Before the world, those who are close to they said that time was the primary issue. Costner had been constantly working between Yellowstone, his popular show, and his big. He was frequently absent from the film project Horizon, from home, and ultimately that produced too much room separates them. Costner, those who knew, didn't desire the divorce. He expressed his grief and claimed he would have taken all necessary steps to make things work. When he did eventually discuss it, he didn't express much, although it was obvious that it was painful. Subsequently that year, while advertising Horizon, people observed that he had changed. He continued to grin and appear composed, but he appeared to be different in some way. More reserved and considerate during interviews, he discussed more candidly than usual how it's challenging to pursue your goals and continue to be the type of partner and parent that you wish to be as focused on his children as he is. He claimed he was trying to remain strong for them. There was nothing he could do but keep going to continue attending and paying attention to them. But then nobody noticed observed approaching while still coping with the split. Costner revealed something surprising about the way he was devastated. It was a little silent. However, it altered how people perceived him. So what he said was, "Let's find a man," attempting to recover from the loss of love when people learned about Kevin's anguish. After a previous partnership, they started to inquire about the person he was referring to. Some thought Cindy must have been thinking. According to the proverb, first love never dies. However, for Kevin, it wasn't his first. His marriage to Christine was a source of affection. As you can see, their marriage was unique. For Kevin was married to Christine for 20 years. Baumgartner, they established a calm, stable living together away from the cacophony of Hollywood-produced and reared children. Made a house full of memories, and Kevin frequently mentioned routine and laughter. That having a family was more important to he was more important than fame. Thus this was that he didn't want to lose the relationship. Gone. So when Christine questioned Kevin in 2023, Costner filed for divorce, and it was as if everything in Kevin's universe abruptly stopped. Everything for which he had put in so much effort seems to be losing. The startling that there had not been any public fights without obvious indications that there was. For many, it seemed to be brewing out of Kevin was left stunned, hurt, and confused at one point. He had a companion that he was confronting life alone after that, just like I claimed that. The divorce wasn't messy earlier. Since Kevin wanted the funds or the vehicles, everything was disorganized since he didn't want to abandon the life they had created. The years of love and memories spent together relinquishing go of the family they had established, all of that seemed unattainable to him. Lacked the ability to articulate the depth of his only the burden of reality settling in agony in. But here's where things get twisted. Months following the signing of the documents, Christine was spotted with Josh, a new acquaintance. Connor was more than a man. He was a Kevin's lifelong buddy and neighbor, someone who had known both of them, which exacerbated the heartache. Kevin's close insider described how he had the impression that he had been stabbed outdoors, and in the back world, that's just how it appeared. In addition to losing his wife, he had lost her to someone he had already trusted. Now, to try to express as Kevin has always been a private person. Man, and doesn't even try to get attention, even though he frequently opens up in a CBS interview. He stated regarding the intense agony he was experiencing, recognizing the difficulty, but also demonstrating his will to move. It is difficult to keep pushing forward, particularly when your heart stays confined behind the scenes. In the past, Kevin put all of his energy into his profession. Began filming the American epic Horizon. He had an ambition of making a Western movie. For many years, it was quite costly undertaking that held great emotional significance for him. It was about history's legacy and despite the cameras, the American spirit. Kevin was still wrestling when he rolled his thoughts. While grieving, he was leading a movie about bravery, while silently unable to muster the courage to reconstruct his own existence. But as time went on, people began to question whether Kevin was either moving on or dating again. Rumors started to circulate regarding him, and they were spotted together with singer Jewel. A few moments of laughter and smiles, which led to people to think that Kevin might have discovered someone new. But Kevin soon clarified and addressed these rumors, that they were merely buddies. Never had a romantic relationship, Yet it did not stop at conquering heartbreak. Following the heartache brought on by Kevin's divorce from Christine Baumgartner, Costner ended up in a situation where he hadn't anticipated that it wasn't the type of discomfort that may be resolved quickly, repair it, or by working tirelessly on it was more profound, the type of persistent discomfort, and causes you to doubt everything you believed you were knowledgeable about life and love. And when everything was quiet, Kevin turned to the individual who was more familiar with him than Cindy. Silva's first wife's dreams, anyone? A family, and the type of affection that is though it would never end, but that had both of them had left many years ago. Their diverse lifestyles, some connections last throughout life. For some people, the past is never truly forgotten. When distance and time attempt to drag them separated, while Kevin dealt with the fallout from Cindy, was the one who ended his second divorce. Silently returned to his life, they started speaking once more, initially slowly, and then it wasn't usually about rekindling the former partner or acting as though nothing had altered, and it was about seeking solace in there. To listen was the well-known Cindy. To give guidance, to just be there, and for Kevin, that was sufficient at times. You can solve everything on your own. Simply require someone to comprehend. But as Kevin relied on Cindy to help him, discovered himself questioning whether there was an opportunity to restore what they had. Would they be able to return to one another? The other, he wished to think it was feasible, even if only briefly, but Cindy was already over her past. Remarried, even though Kevin made an effort to reach out, it was evident that she had a new family, a new life, and not examine the history in the manner that he did. Kevin was still unable to get rid of the feelings. The relationship they previously had was powerful, and at times when he wanted to go back in time, but time doesn't always let you go. It propels you forward when you go backward, whether Cindy had her own, so you're ready or not. Now, and Kevin needed to learn how to acknowledge that their friendship lasted. Despite their closeness, Cindy kept supporting her. They discussed life with the children and occasionally